everyone, and welcome to Trail Talk. As you can see, I am here solo today, flying by myself. Miss Edie is on vacation, and we hope she's having a wonderful time. And we're coming to you live from the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center here in Duncan. And like I said, my name is Mary, if I don't know if I said that before, if you haven't ever joined us here before. We are very excited today to have a special guest that is going to be here with us, not just today, live Zooming with us, but he's actually going to be here with us in person on Saturday for our National Day of the Cowboy. We'll get into that a little bit later, but right now I'd like to introduce to you all Mr. Jerry Bennett. He is an Oklahoma artist. Jerry, hi. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We are excited to have you here. So for those of you that don't know, Jerry, you are a local artist, or Oklahoma artist, I should say, right?
Yes, I'm a full-time freelance artist. I do lots of illustration work. I'm focusing mainly on comic books.
Okay, great. I actually did a little deep dive into Jerry's work yesterday, preparing for today's interview. So I was able to look at some of his artwork and his comics, and your cards were very, he has done all kinds of work. You were actually a resident artist there at the Skirvin, I believe, for a year. Is that correct?
I was. In 2018, I was their art residence, which was a collaborative effort with the Skirvin and the Paseo Arts District, and they have this really amazing studio space where I go in and just get to create my work, and gallery space within that studio I display, and they put on shows for me throughout that year. It was a fantastic experience.
Oh, I can imagine. A whole year in residence, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was wonderful.
I'm sure it was. We have had another artist, I believe, that he was actually here. We did an interview before he went on there to the Scribe, and I believe he's there now in residency. But from what I understand, that is just an awesome program that they have there. And the fact that you were there an entire year, you probably saw and got to do all kinds of great things, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It afforded me a lot of really neat opportunities to connect and network with a lot of people that have not seen my work. Because like the Skirvin is such a unique venue, and people are coming in all over the world to stay there. And so I got to introduce my particular art. In fact, I got to introduce the idea of comic book art as an elevated art medium. And so it was really, really neat to be able to show people that.
Oh, I'm sure. And like you said, people coming in from not just, local, like, an event locally, but staying there at the hotel itself, people coming in, world travelers that, may not even know that kind of art out there exists for something, mainstream like that, just to be. It's just probably, I can imagine the doors it probably opened and the connections, like you said, that it provided for you.
It was. I love that I got to show people just how far reaching comic book art is nowadays. Comic books as a medium have notoriously had this rap of being considered funny books. And just in the last 2 or 3 decades, probably not even that long, it's really entered into this new era of not just like, obviously the Marvel, the DC movies have really elevated comics, and made them way more mainstream. But children's book publishing and a lot of independent creators have been able to really take off with it and show us a whole new side that's rarely seen. We get to show a lot of nonfiction, a lot of historical comics and graphic novels, so many great memoirs out there, just slice of life stories. We get to see this whole new world of storytelling now through comics, and it's been fantastic.
Right, just a whole nother way of actually looking at a story in particular, or like just for what comes to my mind anyway, is like some kids, they might find that style of writing easier for them to follow or to get into, because maybe they can place themselves into it, or it's not just your average, here's a book, here's pages with lots of words on it. There's illustrations that go along with each thing, so they're able to kind of visualize more of what the artist or the author is trying to come across as, so they can see it firsthand, and maybe that's easier for them to comprehend and to maybe take in, rather than just sitting there and reading a book line by line by line.
Yeah, absolutely. And comics have been there's stats that show that comics are an amazing gateway to actual reading regular books. But I love that the process is so unique for each person. The creative process could be any number of ways, because like I know a lot of creators who will start laying out pages and then lay out the dialogue on it, or they will start with a script, and there's so many ways to write the script. It's really free. It's a very free opportunity in the way you can write a script. I guess I can call it a script because it's very similar to screenwriting. And so I recently finished an art residency at USAO in Chickasha, and while I was there, I got to talk and even like have a specifically designed comic book class that I got to create and have last semester. And in that, they got to understand the process of writing, understand the process of how the penciler translate that, and then how the inker will translate the pencil work. And so I would like take up all the scripts and then randomly pass them out to new people, where new students had to do new stories unfamiliar to them. And then I took back all the pencils and randomly passed those out, where the inkers, inking students got to play with those pencils. And so it's a fascinating process. And I just can't stress all the different ways that you can do it, because you can do it as a one-man show. I am a writer and artist, and so I have done things completely by myself, but then I've also played the part of a team effort. So like right now, like my current book, Glamorella's Daughter, which you might be able to see, there it is.
There it is. Saw that yesterday.
This is very much a team effort. Charles J. Martin is the writer, and we're publishing it through Literati Press, and so we have a color artist and a letterer and editors that proofread it and give me revision notes. And so it's just fantastic.
Well, I mean, just all the steps and all the like the words you were using, like the inker and the penciler and so to do those, like the inker, I'm assuming those are the ones that come back with the ink and draw, and the pencilers are the ones that do it in pencil to lay it out. Or am I totally
yeah, I know. So yeah, I already threw a lot of technical jargon, and I apologize.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, the basic process is you start with a story, a script, like you were talking about. The writer has a script, and then the penciler, which is the first stage, they break down and lay out. It's a major compositional effort to try to tell the best story you can in the layouts, because you want to engage an audience and you want to attract them to want to continue to read the story and turn the pages. And so that is a huge process, and it can last, depending on the size of story. You could have like a 22-page story. You can even have a 5-page story, like a short story that might go in an anthology comic book. But the normal amount of comic book pages is usually 22 or longer, especially if you just go jump in with a full graphic novel. That could be anywhere from 120 on up. Yeah, it's an insane amount of work. And so the penciler lays out the story, and there's so many different processes to that as well, because some pencilers are very rough and sketchy, which is my kind of style. And it's fine for me, because I also play the role of inker for my story. So, but there are pencilers who just pencil, and they definitely have a much cleaner, more polished, more finished look to the pages, and to the characters and to the backgrounds and everything. And then it's handed over to an inker, whether it's the same person or a new person that would ink those pages. And the whole process can be done with traditional mediums like actual pencil or ink pens. But lately, the digital medium is very much in the forefront, and it's been a great tool to use, especially as fine art an art as comic books are. It is definitely a commercial art, and so there's deadlines, and so having a digital way to do this helps streamline the process a lot. So the inker then inks. And then we have a colorist who will color the book. And then we have a letterer that will go in and put the balloons and the text. And then if depending on if you have a big enough team where you have editors that can proofread and give notes, you can go back and make revisions, and then you get to go print it and see it come to life, or you post it online and get to see it come to digital life.
Right. I imagine that does help with it, having the digital capability there instead of having to wait for, pony mail, as it would be, mailing it back and forth and waiting for all those revisions and for that person to do this, unless everyone was actually in-house, of course, it would make it, just as easy probably. But so doing it digitally versus doing it the old school way, do you find it easier to do it one way or the other, or do you prefer one way or the other?
There's benefits to both, because like in some markets, there's a lot of people who love to collect comic book art, and they'll frame it and hang it. And
right,
so
the things of the book itself, like the pages and things.
Yeah, the original black and white pages. And so if you do those you obviously need to do those traditionally, because people want those collectors want actual pen and ink.
Right.
And there's sort of, you could do hybrid methods, because like I've seen a lot of people like digitally pencil their work and then they'll print it out and then go in and ink it. So you do get a collectability value to it. So, but for the streamlined process, nothing beats going digital all the way. And that's usually what I do.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so your first piece of art, or your first comic, do you have a special place? Like, what was that like for you? The very first time you were able to publish something? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I don't count eighth grade, because I did do a collaboration with another student who was a friend of mine, and we each had a superhero and we collaborated to make a little team up comic, and that was a super fun thing. And I always do remember that. But my first actual like seeing a comic printed come to life was a really neat situation. And what was even more unique is that it was during a time where I didn't realize that Oklahoma had such a network of comic book creators. And in fact, I was on the beginning. In fact, I was really ready to move to San Diego, because that's where independent comics were at the time. So when I graduated, I was all set to go to San Diego to try to really connect with the comic pros up there. And the very week I was moving, the people that I was moving in with had to give up my space. And so I stayed here, and it turned out to be an amazing thing for a number of reasons. But on the comic book front, I got to meet and find out there was a huge group of people that wanted to make comics here. And we were on the verge of internet. And so internet allowed for, being able to do things across state borders, across international borders. Yeah. So that ended up really being a gift, because it allowed me to really stay in the land that I love. Because like I've always been a fan of Oklahoma, and I love the place, and I love the people, and I've always wanted to stick my roots here. And I wanted to make this place much more known as a really great artist community. And so I feel like I've done that part to an extent, and I'm going to continue being a part of that conversation. So back to that original story. One of the first comic creators I met is named Jackson Compton, who is one of my best friends to this day. He reached out to me asking that if I would be interested in looking at some of his stories to illustrate. And so we met, and we spent like an entire Saturday. I mean, I couldn't believe how fast time had flown, just looking over his story ideas. And while I was there, I brought my sketchbook and was like just sketching as I was inspired by characters and spaceships, because it was a science fiction story that really attracted to me that he had written. He had a zombie story idea that he had thrown first. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to just draw gross stuff necessarily. But then when he mentioned that sci-fi story, I was all in, because like I grew up a Star Wars fan, Star Trek fan. So sci-fi is my jam. And so we got to do a comic book called Nader's Zenith. And it was about an intergalactic space sheriff, basically, that lived in this land that was part Firefly, part Blade Runner in its vibe, and we got to do several issues of it, and we had to stop for various reasons. Life got in the way for a number of ways, but we always are holding on to that, and we definitely plan on coming back to it. But we had a great following of people that wanted to be a part of that. So it was an amazing experience.
That sound, and you made a friendship for life and out of it. And I mean, you talk about Star Wars. When I was looking through some of your art pieces and things yesterday online, I have to say, I mean, Baby Yoda or Grogu, whatever he is called, that is just, I love him. If I could bottle him up and just take him, oh, he is just the sweetest, cutest little thing.
Oh, I want to adopt him so bad. Yes.
I know. He's even on my car. I have to admit, he does. And I'm not one for stickers, but he made it onto my car.
Oh, that's so great.
Anyway, but yeah, your Star Wars, and then you have you had a piece, I believe, for Stan Lee that was it a licensed piece?
It was. So when I was starting out with this whole freelance art business, I went to a lot of Comic-Cons locally and across other states. And there's one locally that now is taking place in Norman, but was in Midwest City when I started doing it, called SoonerCon. And they had the Stan Lee Foundation, which is a literacy promotion foundation, that would come and sell prints and just and had lots of resources to just make literacy a primary factor in people's in children's lives and education. And so part of their fundraising was getting prints from artists. And so I got to be friends with one of the representatives, and I would give him tons of my prints to sell for their fundraisers. And they go all across the US. And so they happened to be in Salt Lake City one year, and they were actually having a board meeting. So Stan Lee himself was there, and he had seen my prints. Mm-hmm. And before that, they had been wanting to do an official print for the Literacy Foundation, but they just never really got any ball rolling until Stan Lee had seen my work. And he had his people immediately contact me to create that for his foundation. And so, yeah, in fact, I got to send that off to Marvel first to be licensed and to have all that exact copyright wording to go at the bottom. And so, yeah, it was a huge bucket list item to be able to have Stan Lee come in.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I enjoy, like you said, the superhero thing has really come, about, since all of the movies have come out, and, all of that's kind of become more mainstreamed, if you will. And I always, in the Marvel, I always look for him because he always has that cameo, usually, in his movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's entered a new phase now, obviously, without Stan Lee, and so it's a little bittersweet, but it's still fun, obviously, to enjoy those movies.
So do you have do you enjoy doing more like the Star Wars type, or do you enjoy more the superhero, or do you enjoy just doing, I'm sure you probably have, your heart, probably your own creation is what you enjoy the most, but what, which one do you like to do the most, or which one draws at you more?
That was so hard because I would jump at any opportunity to be able to create art. And so for the longest time, I was just doing everything I could, honestly. And so I do enjoy, I was doing like you mentioned, those trading cards for Marvel and Star Wars. I would do licensed sketch cards where I would draw actual sketches on these blank cards that they would randomly insert into packs. And I did that for a while. And then I got really focused on the comics, honestly. My ultimate goal was to be a storyteller. While I was in college, I always thought I'd be going into Disney animation and being a big time Disney director. But I realized that process is such a crazy, overwhelming type of idea that I realized quickly that the best way to be a storyteller for me is having all the power, which sounds really arrogant, but But I love the fact that in comics, you can basically have all that power. You can be your own director, your own producer, your own writer, your own visuals, your own special effects. I always tell any comic book workshop that I do, I always tell people, that you're basically the director of your own little movie. You get to decide the camera angles, close ups, you get to try to bring the best out of actors and actresses' faces, by the facial expressions that you draw.
From the left side or the right.
Exactly. Yeah. You just never know where the lighting's supposed to hit. So yeah, you get to decide all that, and so I here on out my biggest joy now is writing my stories and trying to bring those stories to life and trying to get those published.
Good. And like you mentioned earlier, you had the comic, is it the daughter?
Oh yeah, Glamorella's daughter.
So is that your first one? Because did I read it incorrectly? Did it used to be just the mother herself, or was it now based out into the daughter as well?
No, in fact, Glamorella's daughter was always the title. In fact, before I even approached Charles, the writer, with it, I had this story in my mind about a superhero mom who had a daughter that was super bright, super genius kid, but didn't have superpowers. And the mom was trying to reconcile the idea of trying to discover, how her daughter is gifted. That's where my story was. But at the time, I just felt like I couldn't write it. And so I approached Charles J. Martin with that idea, and he loved it. And it was his idea actually to make Glamorella's daughter on the autism spectrum. He has a son who is on the spectrum, and it added a really great element because, the main character, Comet, she's on the spectrum. She's super bright. She loves to read, but she has no care, no desire to be a part of her mom's superhero celebrity life. She'd rather
the shadows.
Yeah, she'd rather be off in her room and reading a book, and so the mom, Glamorella, wants to involve her daughter in all of this, and so she tries her best to include her in social media and take your daughter to work day kind of activities, and so the whole story actually revolves around that relationship, and so it's been a really heartfelt story, and we've gotten some really great feedback from it.
I was going to say, I saw really good reviews and things about it and on it and everything whenever I was, doing my research. And so it looks like you have had quite the outpouring and, response from that. It's just nothing but great things is what I saw anyway.
We're super happy with it. We even got a Kirkus review. Kirkus is like the big reviewers of literature, children's lit on Up. And we were able to get a really, really nice review from them, and so that just made us feel even better. And so we just came out with this first trade is actually a collection of issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. It even includes a bonus story that you can only get in the trade, and so we're very excited to have this out in the world. And in fact, some libraries have just started carrying it, and so we're super stoked about the reach that it's having.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So like I said earlier, Jerry is going to be here with us on Saturday. And for those of you that don't know, Saturday, the 23rd of July is the National Day of the Cowboy. And here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center, we we relish in all things cowboy. And so, of course, for the last 12, I believe this is our 12th or 13th year now, we have celebrated the National Day of the Cowboy, and we will continue to do that again this year on Saturday here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center. Jerry is going to come and be with us all day that day. He is going to be here. And from what I understand, you're going to be drawing some caricatures or is that right? Is that how I understood maybe?
Well, I'm going to bring my iPad, and we'll have it like a live mirror screen to a large screen TV where people can watch me create work live as the day goes by. And so I'll be drawing all kinds of fun cowboy stuff and just anything under the sun.
I know where I'm going to take my breaks. I'm going to be sitting in front of Jerry's little thing watching him create. But that is going to be an exciting time, and we are excited for him to come. I'm excited anyway. I know everyone else is. We have some other guests and things coming as well. Of course, we'll have music from 10 to 5, we will have free admission. And so that's always a bonus for everybody. Lots of things for the kids to do. We have art projects. And so everyone and anyone should come on out, come see us. We will be here. Like I said, Mr. Jerry will be here as well. And I know that he would probably love for everybody to come say hi to him as well. And I think I understood he has some followers that might be coming as well. Maybe, oh, we're now to, I'm Excited is with us. So I won't go through all the other names that we've seen there today, but I am hoping that everyone will come out and join us, if you will. Again, 10 to 5 here at the Chisholm Trail Museum or Heritage Center on Saturday, the 23rd, free admission. Jerry, is there anything else you would like to say while you are here with us?
Well, if anyone wants to see my work, they can go to my Instagram, which is artist Jerry Bennett. And they can give me a follow there. And I will have all kinds of stuff to offer as well. I'll have my Glamorella's Daughter comic series, as well as some of those print, like the Stan Lee prints. I have those available for purchase as well. And so I'll have a number of prints that I've done from like the Skirvin on to recent stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, you guys come join us, come see Jerry, come see the rest of us here on Saturday. And I believe if that is all we have, you guys, we will not have a trail talk tomorrow. We are taking a day off, and we will be back with you again next week. And next week's trail talk, we will have a wrap up of everything that we're going to be doing on Saturday. So hopefully you guys will be with us on Saturday to come join in the festivities. But if not, catch us here next Wednesday at 3 o'clock live, as we will do a recap of everything fun and exciting that you missed out on if you're not able to join us. So Jerry here, when we wrap up at the end of our trail talks, we say happy trails. So if you would, whenever it's time to sign off, if you would join with me in saying happy trails, and I will see you on Saturday, and we will put your information in the comments as well, Jerry, for your website and things.
Thank you so much.
You ready?
Ready.
1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy
trails.
trails.